Welcome to Exceptional Leadership. I'm your host, Anita Brooks. Though my focus is primarily pointed to leadership at an organizational level, let me assure you, most of what I share will translate to almost any aspect of life. Just tweak the info to fit your leadership role. Because whether you approach my content as a corporate leader, middle manager, small business owner, entrepreneur, or as a family member or friend, you are influencing someone. The question is, are you influencing well, exceptionally well? So let's take courage, exercise wisdom, and humbly invest in the people we are called to influence. Join me on a quest, not for perfection, but absolutely for exceptional leadership. Welcome back. I am so glad you joined me today. Well, I'm going to have a conversation with someone that I've known for quite a few years now. She is an exceptional business owner, a small business owner, and I just love her spirit. I love the joy that she brings. You probably heard me say before, I want to be a joy splasher, and this woman definitely is. But she is also a very sharp and skilled businesswoman, so I can't wait for you to meet her. So let's just dig right in. Renee Pinta, welcome to Exceptional Leadership.
Anita, thank you so much for inviting me to talk with you and your listeners today. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we are going to have a good time, but I also know that you will have some wisdom that will definitely help our listeners. Tell us what your business is. What do you do? How long have you done it? How did you get started in that?
Well, I own First Banc Limited. We do credit card processing. So businesses that need to be able to accept MasterCard, Visa, debit cards, American Express, any type of electronic payment, credit card payment, debit card. I set up businesses to be able to do that from just the simple terminal at a cash register all the way to e-commerce and business-to-business type of transactions as well. I got started because my then husband was working in this field. I actually had managed a medical practice, and then I was managing at a hospital, an administrator at a hospital. And had been doing that for like 10 years. And at the hospital, I had reached my cap. I was making $40,000 a year, and I don't have a bachelor's degree. And they had told me that I was capped out, like they would give me a bonus every year, like $500, but my salary wasn't going to go any higher unless I went back to school and got a bachelor's degree. But I'm 40 years old, and the thought of spending tens of thousands of dollars on a bachelor's degree just to get a 3% raise every year just didn't appeal to me at all. The return on investment was very small. And so my husband at the time was selling for another company doing this credit card processing, and he got commission from it. And I'd never done commission sales, but he was making a lot of money. And I was looking at that going, I could do that because I'd go with him on sales calls. So I started, he'd take me like on the weekends or a Saturday, he'd take me with him, and I was doing some of his paperwork. And after the hospital had told me that I couldn't make any more money, I quit and I just struck out and started selling. And my first month, I made $8,000. And every single month, I sold 40 to 50 deals a month, continuing to make $8,000. Well, after I had done that, we did that for about 9 months. We realized that the real money was in the residuals, the reoccurring income every month, because you do make residuals on that credit card processing. So we then opened up First Banc. We had a 10-seat call center, and we had every Monday morning, we had 10 new salespeople that we'd hire and send out to the field. We had trainers, everything. And so we hit the ground running with all of this organized chaos and grew the business. The call center, we don't have it going anymore because you can't call merchants anymore and get an appointment. It's impossible. So you have to learn to pivot while there's just better ways and easier ways to meet with merchants rather than having to use a call center. And I'm thankful that that's over because that was hurting cats.
I'll bet.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. So now you use the word pivot, and I love that word, and especially when it comes to leadership. So I want to camp on that for a couple minutes.
Okay.
One, working in the medical field alone, and you were a manager, so you were leading
Hmm.
people in that
Yes.
body of work. And I know because I've done multiple business coaching scopes and trainings for people in the healthcare community and groups, hospitals and clinics and so forth. So I know that there's a lot of pivot that has to take place in that world. And especially with COVID, the thing that we're all coming out of now with this pandemic, these people are pivoting all of the time. But
Yeah.
when you're in a leadership position, the timing of the pivot is one thing that I think so many in leadership miss. I think they delay and they wait too long for the pivot. What are your thoughts on that?
I think some people are afraid of change.
Mhm.
Like, this is the way I've been doing it forever. So this is the way that I want to continue to do that. Because I meet with business owners every single day, talk with them, and I see how they run their businesses. A lot of people, change is a 4-letter word. And so they're afraid to pivot because they don't know what's on the other side of that pivot. For me, being able to recognize a trend or being able to recognize a new way of doing things, because our world changes so fast now. Think of all the new trends that have come out in the last 2 years, new ways of doing things. And you have to be adaptable to survive. You have to be adaptable to be a help. Because my role, I don't just sell a product. How we view it, my team, is that we really sincerely want to help a merchant. We want to find a solution for them to make their lives easier. We want to do it in a way that they never have to think about credit card processing ever again. Like, this runs so well, I don't even think about it. And so we have to be able to pivot. You have to be adaptable. You have to look farther down the road and not be afraid to say, what I'm doing right now isn't working. I've got to pivot. I'm going to change and do it this way so that I can continue to grow and continue to help people.
You're so right. Most often we're afraid of the unknown,
Yes.
and we feel like we've got to know what the outcome is before we can make a decision, which is paralyzing and stifling, and it actually gets a
Yeah.
lot of people in trouble in their businesses and well, in real life as well. But
Right.
in fact, I've found that, just as you said, look into the future and imagine. Use that imagination that God gave us and say what might happen. And I don't just let my brain go to the negative or the doomsday. And so many people that I work with, that's the first place they go. And they just camp there and they get
Yeah.
stuck. But
Right.
I also look and say, but what might the exciting things be that come out of this? What are the opportunities? Oftentimes when I'm doing business coaching, I'll use a SWOT analysis. And SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I'll take these leaders and sometimes even frontline people, depending on what that business wants, but I'll take them through an exercise where we begin to brainstorm what are the potential strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for our business. But sometimes I'll take them through that SWOT as far as what would those areas be if we were to make a decision or if we were to pivot and change. And even in leadership, we can do a SWOT for us as leaders. But I
Yeah,
think it's important to analyze that.
absolutely. Like, when we had that call center up and going, and the girls initially, for the first 5 years, they're setting us 10 appointments a day, had plenty of opportunities for salespeople in the field to get face to face with business owners. But then it started changing and getting that one girl, it would take her all day long to set maybe four appointments. So we had to pivot because your return on investment was terrible. You're spending all that money for that girl to sit there all day and make all those phone calls, and you're paying for your phone system, you're paying for your person, your telemarketer, all of that, and those appointments, which initially were costing us maybe $15 to $20, now have gone up to $50 and $100. Then you have to look at you paying a commission for that appointment. So very quickly, you have to pivot at that point and find a better way, a new way, a more cost-effective way to do what you need done. And you have to be willing to say this, not everything was successful. You know, when we're doing this, we thought, well, we're going to telemarket out. Like we've tried so many different times to just call merchants on the phone and explain our service and how, you know, we can help them. And that didn't work either. Sometimes it's like fishing. You have to cast out and see what works. Well, this bait's not working. This bait's not working. This bait's not working. And then you find one that's working and you just start reeling them in.
That's true. But there's something else key in what you were saying there, and reminds me of a situation that just happened with one of my business coaching clients. So basically, though, what you had to do was analyze the data. You had to look at what those costs were, do a cost analysis to determine what we're spending. And so I have a coaching client, and so I was working with the leadership team, and I asked them what I thought was a very simple question. And this is a manufacturer. So I said, what are the most profitable products that you're producing? And kind of went around the room with each person, let them answer that question. And I kept getting this type of response. Well, I think it's this, or I'm pretty sure it's that, or yeah, I know that's the one we're making the most on, or these are the top three. But the fact was, not one individual was giving me a data-driven piece of information. It was all gut, and it was based on gut for years, right? So this was something that maybe 20 years ago they did a cost analysis, but not recently. And so delving into that, the challenge that I gave was, okay, we need numbers. My primary focus, my bedrock, if you will, of what I do in my business coaching is people driven. But when I work with the people, then we're able to get to the processes and performance and profitability pieces. Those are the 4 P's of my P4 power coaching. But it took a while. It took actually a few months for them to be able to come up with the formula where they could even do the cost analysis. And there was some frustration in there. And if I were imagining, I'm sure some of them were even like, I don't want to keep trying to do this. We know where we make our most profit. But here's the thing. When they finally got the formula pulled together, lo and behold, surprise, there were a couple of products that they would have sworn were very profitable. As a matter of fact, some of their most profitable, but come to find out, there was one they were actually losing money on, and another one they were flush, or maybe every once in a while have a little bit of net, and that was it. So it was with that piece of hard information, they were able to make truly informed, data-driven decisions that are now going to take their company to a much higher profitability level. As a matter of fact, estimate probably a savings / making money difference of over $100,000 a year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just by making sure you have the data. So it's incredible to me how many times we as leaders will delude ourselves, and we tell ourselves that we're practical, we're objective, we are making fact-based decisions, but in reality, we're making emotion and gut-based decisions. Isn't that crazy how we do that to ourselves?
It's so true. My natural personality, I'm very much a people person. I'm very outgoing and definitely am a leader. But my natural tendency is not the paperwork side of things. It's not the facts and numbers thing. That's not a natural gift for me. I have to, I've set up processes and use QuickBooks, and I use all the bells and whistles in there. And then I go through my residual report line by line every single month. And so I know what types of companies are more profitable for me to work with and which ones aren't. And so we do go by the numbers sometimes. You have to target businesses and sell and invest in, because sometimes I have to buy hardware for them to use. And you have to look at those numbers, because very quickly, if you're not aware of what's going out and what's coming in, very quickly more is going out than what's coming in. And it's because it's not the easy thing for me. It's not the fun thing. This sitting down and doing reports every month, it's not fun.
No.
But profitable because I make myself do it.
Yes.
And I want to be profitable. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. Is I want to make money at it, goals and dreams. And this is the way that those things come true.
Yes. And and even like this company that I just described, the reason that happened was spurred because there was a company that I worked with prior to that had a similar situation with their products. And so what I found is there is a pattern among leadership of not doing that. But the thing that the first company that they were doing, they were not looking at their financials on a regular basis. The people part absolutely lights me up. The numbers I've learned to enjoy, but that's a learned behavior. And I've learned to enjoy it because I actually look at it as a jigsaw puzzle and I make a game out of it. And then I make a game out of like how we can get more profitable and that type of thing. But I also think about how those profits impact people, how it can make people's lives better. And so making sure that we're looking at those financials on a regular basis is so key, but it's so often missed. And I talk about invisible drains. These are the things that drain money, time, and energy from organizations and their people.
Right.
But if you're not looking at financials, you can have a massive drain or even multiple drains and never catch it because you don't know what your own numbers are doing. You don't know if there's a fluctuation or you don't know if there's a chronic sieve of profits that's going out. But once you start looking at those numbers, and a lot of people are intimidated by financials, but in fact, after a while, you do get used to that. And if you're not good at it, then I guarantee you there's somebody who gets turned on by numbers that you can go to.
I've learned to surround myself with people who can do the things that I don't like to do. I'm not detail oriented. So I have people that handle the details for me. I have people that do the things that that's not my strong suit or that excel in that area. And so a lot of people think that they have to change their personality or change themselves to be the square peg to fit in that round hole, or they're trying to shove themselves in a spot that they're not supposed to be, that's not who they really are. Obviously, you have to make some disciplines to be able to run a company and get done all the things that you need to do. But there's no shame in finding somebody to help you do the things you don't like to do or the things that you're not good at, because that person then finds joy in doing all of those numbers or doing the things, the details and the stuff that you don't like to do. And then everybody's happy.
Not only is there no shame, that's strategic. That's wisdom.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a smart leader who isn't trying to be the be all end all of the organization, but instead they are smart enough to know I can't do everything. And this is one of the things I tell people often, Renee, is we can absolutely shove a square peg into a round hole. We can do that. But then we will spend our money, time, and energy pulling splinters every day. And we will do more of that than we will being progressive and profitable and getting things done.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I love the fact that you pointed that out, though, that we can surround ourselves, and some of the most exceptional leaders I know do this. They're confident and comfortable enough in their own skin to say, I don't know everything.
Oh, I don't.
And so then they surround themselves with other people, though, who fill in the gaps of their weaknesses.
When I first would hire somebody, I've always said, here's the responsibility. Here's what needs to get done. This is the end result that I need. I don't care how you get from point A to point B. Just get to point B.
Yes.
This is how I would do it. But if you find a better way, or because we all have different personalities and just life experiences, if somebody can do that same job in a different way, a better way, because I don't know everything, I'm not arrogant enough to believe that my way is the end all be all. And also, if you let your team have their own autonomy, make their own, maybe their way isn't necessarily the most efficient way, but they're still getting the result, the desired result, let them be. Let them do it. The ownership of that job and having their own autonomy will encourage them to grow and flourish and become creative, and having the pride of ownership then makes them love their job. Micromanaging an employee, a team, is just the worst thing that you can do to your employees.
Micromanagement is a beast, and it is so many fall prey to micromanagement. And you're correct. And right now we are living in a time where there is an employee shortage. And here's the thing. A lot of people are blaming this on the pandemic, and it's really not even pandemic related. No. It's because we have baby boomers that are retiring out at over 11,000 per month. And this is going to be going on for years. And there are not enough people to replace them, and certainly not enough skilled people to replace them. And some of the newer generation, some of them say, I don't want to work for anybody else. I want to be my own business owner. I want to have my own independence. So as a leader, it is strategic to be intentional, not to micromanage, but to create that autonomy, create that environment, that atmosphere where people can be creative and independent and feel ownership and engagement in what they're doing, because those are the people who are going to stay. If people are micromanaged, they're going to run at the first opportunity that they get.
Absolutely. For me, my team, they know what their responsibilities are, and they are getting the job done. And I'm not standing over them going, how many phone calls did you make today? And who did you talk to? And what's the resolution? I don't even know half the time what Tier is even doing on my team. She handles all of the customer service, and she is amazing at her job. My customers send her flowers on her birthday. Oh, wow. She gets Christmas cards. Yeah. They call her just to chat. Call her to say, hey, do you know so-and-so? And could you find me somebody, in your team or your pool of merchants that know how to do X? Giving her the autonomy to do her job. And she's so amazing at it because she's allowed to flourish and she is allowed to make decisions. And also, one of my big things that I always tell new people, you are allowed to make mistakes.
Yes.
You will never, ever, ever get in trouble for making a mistake. I will thank you for making a mistake, because if your people are making mistakes, that means they're working.
Yes.
We are human beings. We are not perfectionists. There are perfectionist people, but nobody is perfect, and they're going to make mistakes while working for you. And if you create an environment where there's shame, if you create an environment where there's fear for a mistake to be made, if you're punitive with your employees, if they make a mistake, well, then what's going to start happening is they're going to start lying to you, and they're going to start hiding the mistakes from you.
Amen.
Because you have created an environment where there's fear.
Yes.
And so I have worked very hard to create an environment where they can come to me and say, I made a mistake. And I'm like, oh, well, tell me what you did. Look, we can fix it. And I'm always quick to be upbeat and positive and say, oh, we can fix it. And we really can. There's no mistake out there that anybody has made working for you where it can't be fixed. I mean, there are extreme things. We can fix these things, and we need to create an environment where it's safe for them to come to you and say, I screwed up. And then you work to find a solution to it and build them back up again.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Back when I was leading a larger team, I mean, right now I have a smaller team in my business, but when I was leading a larger team, but it's true even today, one of my ongoing messages is, look, any mistake can be fixed or resolved in some way. Even the big, crazy, hairy ones, we may not be able to resolve it exactly the way others want it resolved, but we'll figure out some workaround to get to the best point possible.
Right.
But the problem I have sometimes is when people don't bring me the mistake. And I've always told people, look, anything can be fixed. I'm not going to be upset with you if you bring me a mistake and say, Anita, I did. Fess up when you mess up. But if you hide the mistake, then we're going to have an issue. Then there's going to be a problem. I have to trust you that you can just bring it to me. And just like you said, we all make mistakes. And as a leader, One of the things that I make sure that I remind my people of often is I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and I try to set that example that when I do
Yes.
mess up, I fess up, and I fess up to them first.
Yes. And,
So,
then we sit and laugh about it. But if I don't show that I'm human and fallible, I don't want to put myself on a pedestal, and I definitely don't want to put any of my employees on a pedestal. I want us to link arms and work together to achieve these goals and just create a work environment where it's safe. And
yes.
that it's safe to make choices. It's safe to make bad choices because I know I'm not going to lose my job, get beat up, get screamed at, get charts. I had charts thrown at me. I try to be the boss because I had some really bad bosses through the years. And so I try to be the boss that I always wanted to be or I always wanted to have.
Right. It's one of the things I go through life, Renee, and I try to say to myself, what kind of person do I want to be around? Be that person.
Yeah, that's what I want to be for my people because I'm also not deluded. Back in the 80s, when you would get a job, you were like married to that job. And I did mortgage lending back in it was back in the 90s, I guess. And so that meant I went in early and I stayed late and I would work weekends and whatever. And I had little children at the time, but you had to be married to that job. That job was first and foremost. And so there was just this loyalty to the job. And people keep saying, well, nobody wants to work. Well, it's not that they don't want to work. They just don't want to work for a crappy company anymore.
Right.
People work to make money. They don't work for that job. And we have to look at it and say that I'm here with my business. I'm dedicated because it's my, I put blood, sweat, and tears into this. And my loyalty is to my company because it's mine. It's this baby that I brought forth into the world and created. And I'm very fiercely loyal and protective of it. But my employees do not feel that way about this company. This is a paycheck so that they can go out and make their dreams and their family's dreams come true. And so you have to have that perspective. This is a paycheck, and you cannot expect people to love your baby like you do.
I love that you made that point. I just had an issue with one of my coaching clients where one of the executive leaders actually came down pretty hard on some of their middle managers. And I'm going to have to do damage control over it because the executive leader really was put out because the middle managers weren't loving the baby as much as that executive was. And you're right. And the thing is, people do work to make a paycheck. But they can make a paycheck in a lot of different places. They don't stay at companies because of money. They don't typically, there are a few very small percentage of instances, but very few people stay because of money or leave because of money. They stay or they leave because of the environment, because of the way they feel, because of the way that they're treated. That's why people leave and stay.
Yep.
So I want to go back to something you said a minute ago. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I do this sometimes with my guests, so I'm going to apologize up front, but I know you'll keep up. So when you were describing some of those bad bosses that you had, can you give us a few examples of why you use the term bad? What was bad about their leadership?
They weren't leading. They were reactive. They were punitive, vindictive. I'm a very outgoing person. I've always been that way. And the introvert bosses, I got on their nerves because I am so happy. And the introvert bosses, it was like probably a little bit of a double-edged sword. They wanted that outgoing personality because their customers loved it and I was performing well, but then they hated it because a happy ray of sunshine all the time got on their nerves. I think the bad bosses were bad bosses because they were afraid to look inward and see their weaknesses as well as their strengths. And some people, when they get a little bit of power in corporate world, I remember like getting a new title and it being such a big deal. Other people having titles and then lording it over the other one, like the whole politics and the whole corporate structure. Oh my gosh, I hate it so much because I realize now as I've gotten older that there's such joy in leading in a way where people flourish and grow and being in the environment with the bad bosses, it's just so life-sucking and it's soul-sucking.
Yes.
And so it's hard to have joy, and it's hard to love what you do. And I think that insecure bosses are harder to follow because their insecurities keep them from letting somebody who's got a strong personality or somebody who has something that's different from them. It intimidates them, and it makes it harder for them to be kind.
It's so funny you use the term soul sucking. So I'm creating a digital course. And so it's a management certification course because I feel like there's a gap that people are put in management positions. And even those with college degrees, business degrees, often they're not taught the real skill sets that are needed for in the trench management of people.
Yes.
I'm working hard to fill that gap. But one of the areas of focus for me is the fact that this is also a benefit for the manager itself. Yes, it's a benefit for the people they manage and the organization itself whenever they follow points that I teach, but it's also a benefit to them because when they kind of release some of that insecurity and let go of the reins a little bit, trying to be so over controlling. Stop trying to micromanage. They don't have to work soul sucking weeks themselves. And that's so funny you use that term because I'm using that term in some of what I'm producing because I hurt for so many people who are just working and grinding it out in soul sucking weeks, but they hate their job. They hate their life, but they're not doing anything different to change it.
Right.
And I want to help give them the tools and the resources and the inspiration to change that because I loved what you talked about when you talked about the joy of leadership and flourishing because that is possible. And leader, if you're listening to this and you think there's no joy in my leadership, I'm not flourishing, I don't think my people are flourishing. Just know you can give yourself permission to change that. The very first place you can start is your self-talk. What are you telling yourself about the workday? What are you telling yourself about the people you lead? What are you telling yourself about the job and the processes? What are you telling yourself about the customer, the client? Because whatever we say to ourselves, we act out of and we project that into our habits and our behaviors. Something I get a little worked up about, obviously you can tell, but
well, I feel the same way. To me, it is a huge privilege to be able to have a team that you are managing. You have people that are responsible, that you're responsible for. And so people that are dependent upon me for a paycheck. And so I don't take that lightly because I know that they have to pay their rent. They have to pay their bills with what I'm providing for them. But I also take so serious this team because I want to make their lives better. And so I look for ways. I celebrate the wins. I make it a point to celebrate their birthdays. And I look at this like, how can I make their life better when they're out their desk doing their job? I don't want to take them for granted. I know that it is a privilege to do what I'm doing. And so I want to do it so well. And I want to, because the more that you pour into your team to make them happy and make their lives easier and better, well, they multiply that back to you.
Yes.
It's not addition, it's multiplication. So if you do everything in your power to make their job easier, their life easier, that moment they walk in the door, they're glad to be there because you're such a great person and an awesome leader, and you're doing everything you can to give them the skills and the tools to grow and flourish in what they're doing in that 9-to-5 existence. Well, then what happens is if they do have to stay over or you do need to call on them to do the extra, a lot of times you don't even have to ask them to go the extra mile. They're going to do it because they have such loyalty to you. They will then walk over hot, fiery coals to help you out because they love what they do.
Yes, and there's a mutual respect, there's a connection, there's a care. One of
Yep.
the elements so there's 7 core invisible drains that I've identified. And so one of them is inconsistent and unclear customer care. But this one, there's twofold. There's external customer care, the kind that we're all familiar with, but there's internal customer care, because inside the workplace where we all work shoulder to shoulder together, we are each other's customers at times, and we need to show care for our internal customers. And when we do, it's like you said, they'll walk over fiery coals. I've still got people who haven't worked for me for years, and I hear from them often. And today they would still walk over fiery coals for me over some things that happened years ago when I was their leader. And one of the things that I think is interesting statistically, I read this several years ago. One of the top 3 reasons given that people stay at a workplace is because someone in leadership cares about me as a human being, as a person on a personal level. And I think what you're doing, Renee, in all of the things that you describe is you are showing care. You're expressing that day in and day out. And when we are genuinely grateful for the people that we're leading, they in turn are grateful for us. And then together we all accomplish a lot more. I love what you said. It's not addition, it's multiplication. And
Absolutely.
That is so very true. And so even thinking about that here in our last couple of minutes, I'd like to talk about this. Often I am asked when I'm first starting business coaching scopes, or like after I've spoken at a conference or something, I have people come up and talk to me about rewards. I need to boost morale. Can you give me any tips or ideas on rewards that work for people? Which I have several, but I'd like to hear your perspective on that, Renee.
I kind of have like big, little, small. I'll start with small. The small thing that I do is when they do something, like I catch them doing something good, something unexpected, or they do something well, they have a win, I write them a note and stick it on their desk.
Love it.
And even like, because I work with vendors, I have vendors that I work with on a daily basis that provide the credit card processing, and I'm on the phone with them all the time. And if somebody over there does something nice for me, and I know who the bosses are and everything, I send them notes. And I also email their bosses and let them know that they did this for me. And I want to commend them. And I wanted you to know that they went above and beyond. It's easy for us people, like, we'll get on the phone and we'll yell at somebody for what they did wrong. But we also have to be willing, if you want people to take you seriously when you do get upset about something, you also have to be willing to acknowledge the good. You can't constantly harp on the bad. You have to be able to say, you know what, they did this for me, or you did this right, and I just want to thank you for it and acknowledge it and tell you I appreciate it. Because if all you do is complain, nobody's going to listen to you.
That is so true. And I even have created a template that I give a lot of my clients, and it's I caught you doing something right. And it's a fill in the blank.
Yep.
And it's like, congrats, I caught you doing this right. And then they can fill in whatever that blank is. But it creates that culture where it's not just about hearing what I'm doing wrong and feeling as if I can never measure up, but it's also celebrating the wins. I love that.
And to feel appreciated.
Yes.
A lot of people walk out of jobs because they don't feel appreciated. There's no gratitude expressed to them. A lot of people are like, well, the gratitude is like, give them a paycheck. No, that might have been true in 1950, but that is not true today. And I am grateful for the people that are on my team, and I want them to feel the gratitude from me. It's not just a paycheck. I want them to know I appreciate all that they do on my behalf.
Yes.
It's on my behalf.
Yes.
I own the place. So how they speak with my customers, I want them to know that I am so grateful that they went the extra mile for that business owner to help their business grow. So yeah, thank you notes, little note cards. I used to carry on when I was active in the church and doing church work. I had a team that did stuff for me, and I would hand out these gold stars, and they were big, they were like 2 or 3 inches tall, and I would write a little note on it, and I would hand out these gold stars whenever I would catch that group of the volunteers doing stuff. It was so funny to see these great big grown men so tickled to get a gold star. And they keep them and they like pull them out of their pocket. And they're like, remember you gave me this gold star? I carry it with me. It was such a big deal to them. And I'm thinking, to me, it was just, it's just a gold star. But, I just wanted them to know I appreciated it. It's a volunteer position. You got to show appreciation and how much it meant to them. And those thank you notes, I've had employees tell me that they've kept them years later and they've got them in a file. Or I'd run into ex-employees and they're like, I have on my refrigerator that note you wrote me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I've
had no idea.
Yeah, I've had some pull like tattered ones out of their purse or wallet. This has happened multiple times and said, I carry this around with me all the time. I've had people say to me, Renee, and this is so sad, and I've had multiple people say this, you are the only person in my life who's ever said, I appreciate you.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that
breaks my heart.
Heart-wrenching. But
it is.
Then that also shows as leaders, talk about the SWOT analysis, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to express appreciation to a lot of people who are not hearing it from any place else. And it's motivating. You talk about a reward and it costs you nothing.
Absolutely.
I love it. So you said you have small, big, or small, medium, and large. Is that what you said on your rewards? Yep. Okay. So what's a medium-sized reward?
Because we all have different personalities and you are the queen of the personality test and assessment. And I cannot recommend enough getting Anita's personality quiz and giving it to your employees and learning what their different personalities are. And once you do that whole personality assessment and you understand what your different employees have as a personality, it helps you approach the next two, medium and large, better. Because some people, words of affirmation are huge for them. So bring them into your office, sitting them down, having coffee with them one-on-one, that will be the end-all be-all. Once you identify the person's personality, then you go from there. Like Tier, she has this big personality and she is just over the top. And so like I bring her sparkly jewelry, buy her a beautiful little bracelet, or I bring her something. When I go on a trip or something, I always bring her back a souvenir, t-shirt, or something that fits her personality that I know that she'll love, something that I know is her, not something generic, something that is specifically for her and her personality. And knowing that because I've got, other people that if I bought a book for them from their favorite author, that would be an amazing, oh my gosh, I feel seen. Yes. And that's the other thing. They feel seen. Yes. You see who I am. I'm not giving a yoga mat to somebody who hates exercise. Right. You want your employees to feel seen for who they are and that you know them. And then the large thing is Tier has unlimited vacation and sick days. I realized that you have to have work-life balance. Yes. And if you don't take and invest in them, which means you pay them when they're sick, you pay them when they're not there. If you don't give generously to your employees in your benefits package, you're not going to get that back. It's kind of like the concept of tithing. I pour into Tier, and then, I have other salesmen as well, and I'm generous with them because I know that my generosity is going to be given back to me. And multiplied. So, multiplied. It's not addition. It is multiplication. And I know that some people are going to have constraints on what they can and can't do. Some people are like, well, I don't have the budget for that. Well, you know what? You do have some sort of a budget and you can do something. Don't just not do anything. Do what you can with what you have and make it as great as you can. If you don't have a budget to get gifts or things to make your employees appreciated, then sit them down in front of you with a cup of coffee and look them in the eye and tell them. That goes so far because they're sitting there at their desk and hating their life and they're feeling like it's soul sucking because, there's no benefit package or there's no sick days or there's no vacation days. Tier and I, we are and this is very unusual we're very close. We're actually best friends, and we have been best friends. It's taken us years to get to where we're at now, but she's been with me since 2007.
Wow.
What does that tell you?
Yes.
We are best friends. We take a week and we go to the beach for 7 days, and I pay for everything.
Nice.
I pay for the airfare. I pay the hotel. She get an Airbnb, and I pay for every single thing for a whole week for both of us. And we have the best time. The best time. Now,
Yes.
Not everybody wants to hang out with their employee on vacation. I get that. We have a different relationship because we are such close friends. And look, there have been times where I've had to have a serious conversation with Tierre on performance. It's been a long time since I've ever had to have that conversation. But when she first started with me, we didn't have that friendship that we had. We've had to have multiple conversations about performance. And I have always said, you can't be friends with your employees because at some point you're going to have a conversation, and it's going to be harder for you to do that if you're buddies with your employees. And I believe that we actually have just evolved through the years, and we both have been through some really rough stuff over the years, and it's just brought us closer together, and we've been able, and I can have a conversation with her.
Right.
I can say, okay, this is business. We need to talk.
You have a deep and mature relationship with her, though, and you couldn't have done that so she started in 2007. You couldn't have done that in 2010.
Oh, no, I wouldn't have trusted her. With all that I trust her with now.
Yes.
She has grown. She's amazing. She's like oh my gosh, you need to interview her. She's a life force.
Awesome.
But,
well, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. But you be generous with what you have. You may not have the ability to pay for a week's vacation, but with what you have, just be generous with your team and watch that generosity be multiplied back to you in so many different ways.
I agree. And the first place that we can be generous is in our authentic gratitude for them. So I think this is such a great place to land. Renee, thank you so much. I knew there would be a wealth of wisdom in this podcast, and there definitely has been. I hope that you can come back and join me at another time because, as always, we know we are friends. We've developed friends that started through business. I just appreciate you, and I appreciate the mark that you make on the world because every day you are making an exceptional difference. So I just say, keep on keeping on, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It is such a privilege and an honor just to talk to you and to your listeners. I'm so grateful to be a part of your life and just to share what I've learned through the years. Oh my gosh, I have so many stories, but I'm just honored to be here. Thank you so much.
My honor, my pleasure. Well, listener, I just want to remind you that if there's someone that you know that you think could benefit from the information that was shared, please let them know about the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. It is my mission, my goal, and my joy to be able to try to influence others exceptionally well. We're like a pebble tossed in a pond, and I want us to make as many ripples as we possibly can. And for you, remember that every day you have a choice. You're going to lead someone. Why not lead exceptionally well? I am so excited to share with you. I have created a management certification course. It's called Fast Track Leadership Impact. In my first launch of this course, I'm going to offer a price that will never be seen again. This will absolutely, I can assure you, be the lowest that I ever offer this digital course. I have filled it with decades worth of not just research and study, but also real life in the trenches work. So if you'd like to know more, contact me today. Go to anitabrooks.com or email info@anitabrooks.com to get more information about Fast Track Leadership Impact.